Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and four-time author, Tony Walker.
Ever felt stupid for asking a question? Well, assuming the answer is no, then apparently you've never asked questions of the financial world regarding your money and your retirement. Yet, in the real world of planning for retirement and the many questions I receive from savers anxious about their money and the fear of possibly one day running out of it, over the last 38 years in this business, it's taught me that while savers have tons of questions about their money, many are afraid to ask those questions for fear that the questions they will ask appear to the financial world to be stupid. The result? Savers instead keep those questions to themselves and usually blindly follow the lead of a financial world that may or may not have their best interest at heart. Which is why today we're going to dedicate the next two shows answering the most common questions we receive from savers, questions that are not stupid at all, but ones that should be asked, and we call this There Are No Stupid Questions. Well, welcome folks to the WorryFree Retirement, and with us in the studio today to help us answer the most common questions from savers is not one, but two of Tony Walker Financial's highly trained fiduciaries. To my right, my favorite son-in-law, Mr. Trey Juergens. Good morning, Trey.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
And you're welcome. And over in the WorryFree Retirement bullpen, former standout catcher, I knew you didn't want me to say this, standout catcher from Lexington, Kentucky, now turned financial advisor, my favorite nephew, Mr. Wes Walker. How you doing, Wes?
Doing good, Tony. Standout's generous, but I appreciate it.
Well, Ma Jo says you were a standout catcher. I'm going to go with it.
She did do a lot of the recruiting for Central Kentucky, so yeah.
So, folks, this show basically is starting out talking about an article that actually America's favorite financial sidekick stumbled across over the weekend and sent it to me, and I said, man, that is really true. This is a great article, and it's about an NFL player. And again, I know you were the baseball player, Wes, but since Trey, you had a pretty good run at Fort Thomas Highlands in football. Explain to me, first of all, who this gentleman is and what this article is all about.
Yeah, so Terrell Owens, he's a longtime receiver in the NFL. He's a Hall of Famer, played 1 year for my beloved Bengals. So Aaron sent this article. It was advice by Terrell Owens about having to trust someone in the financial world with your money. Unfortunately, making several millions in his career in the NFL, he trusted some advisors that weren't so trustworthy.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he's now left to find some money.
In fact, look at this quote. Let's put this up, Mary Beth. By the way, Mary Beth is doing an absolute wonderful job on the graphics. Mary Beth, how's it going over there?
It's going great, Tony. Thank you.
All right, so I love this quote. Find somebody, now again, this is after he lost it all, right? Okay. Find somebody you feel that is experienced in that arena to give you advice. Ask them, I love this, what do you think about this? Don't take anything for granted. So what do you think he meant by that last part about don't take anything for granted?
Well, I think he was blindly trusting these advisors to do what he thought was going to be in his best interest. He was focused, you see that word arena, on performing as an athlete. He was not a financial advisor. He made a lot of money in his arena, but he had to trust somebody to have that be there in his retirement.
So folks, when we come back, what we decided to do between Wes, Trey, and even Heather, our fiduciary in our Bowling Green office, we've compiled, this is why we're going to need two shows, compiled the most common questions that people ask us that sometimes these savers think are stupid questions, and they're not stupid questions at all. Stay tuned, we'll be right back to answer your questions on retirement.
Now folks, when you roll over your 401k to us, we have a 10% guaranteed return. How's that sound?
Where in here does it say we get a 10% guaranteed rate of return?
Oh, it's all on the paperwork. You just have to read it.
I don't know, honey. This looks awfully complicated.
Did I say guaranteed? Because it's guaranteed.
Don't get stuck in the wrong annuity. Get a second opinion from TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Welcome back to the WorryFree Retirement. I am Tony Walker, and in the studio is Mr. Trey Juergens and our other fiduciary, Mr. Wes Walker. And our topic today has been there are no stupid questions, and incidentally, we will be hosting another show next week as we continue with these questions, so this is some really good stuff. Got to show you this picture, Trey and Wes. Now, Trey, you've been to more of these. These are workshops that I conducted over the years. Don't do those much anymore, but that was a pretty good sized workshop there. But speaking of questions, and this came up the other day, actually. I was meeting with a prospective client, thinking about rolling over their 401k, and he asked a question of me, which always was asked at the workshops. Can you guess what that question was? After doing a hopefully stupendous job presenting information, what do you think was the big question?
Yeah, all that sounds good, but what happens if something happens to Tony Walker?
And actually, that was a good question. It's like I told the gentleman yesterday, I said, well, that would be a problem 10 years ago, but now I've got yourself, I've got Wes, I've got Heather in the Bowling Green offices, 3 salaried fiduciaries, we've got the proprietary software. We have a total now of 11 full-time employees in the Bowling Green office. So folks, if you're wondering about that, hey, if we do work with Tony Walker Financial, what happens to this place if something happens to Tony? I can assure you we've got that covered. And very proud of you guys and all the folks that are helping. So, and hopefully by the end of this show and the next show, you'll see that, hey, they really do have it going over there. And the questions we have are going to be answered and you're going to be taken seriously. So if we can, Trey, let's just get right into it here. And this is our first question. One of the main things we do is 401k rollovers. I mean, we're very good at that. Maybe you're sitting there right now, folks. You got an old 401k, you're getting ready to retire. Maybe you've already rolled it over somewhere into an IRA, but nobody's servicing it. Explain what this is all about, Trey, when somebody says, okay, let's move our 401k over to you. What's going to happen next?
Yeah, so this is actually what we call the onboarding process. In the Louisville office, this is a lot of the time when new clients get to spend some time with me. We get these accounts established. In this case, with a 401k rollover, we're going to need an IRA for that to roll over into. Make sure we do a direct rollover. It does take some time, but we handhold them throughout the entire thing. We get the account established. We call the custodian where that 401k is being held, and then we let them know we're going to do a direct rollover, have a check made out to that custodian, 9 times out of 10 to Charles Schwab. They'll send the check most often to that client, to their home address on file for security purposes. They bring that check to us. We make sure it gets to Charles Schwab and then get it invested there or possibly off to some other products.
And we've seen where other advisors don't understand this process and they've had some snafus. In fact, we created this sheet. This is kind of cool. One of the things, and we're even trying to get even better at this because I think people just don't realize it does take time. So this is a particular sheet, folks. So when you're working with us and you make that initial step to say, okay, let's roll this thing over, these are the types of steps we go through. We make sure the entire office in Bowling Green that's actually going to handle the grunt work on this stays in touch with you. But we like to tell people as far as from the time it starts to the time of delivery, I mean, it could be 4 to 6 weeks, couldn't it?
Oh, it could. And there's 3 real ways that we can transact business in this financial world. Whether it's writing a check right then and there for an investment, whether it's the rollover, like we just mentioned with a 401k plan, employer plan, or a transfer, an existing IRA or non-qualified account into a new one with us.
Oh, and that reminds me, and Wes, I think you it was in this meeting yesterday, somebody came in, we'd already done their income plan, we were rolling over a 401k, and then there was a small IRA that was coming over, and I kept talking about the onboarding process, and they said, well, is the IRA a rollover? And I said, actually, and I got that sheet back out, that's a transfer. So it helped them to understand the mechanics of everything involved. And again, y'all are doing a great job of that, but also they realize once that onboarding takes place, that Bowling Green office and that staff really kicks it into high gear. So great introduction to the onboarding process. Let's go to the next question we get a lot. Read this one out, Trey, because you get a lot of these questions once we're in the onboarding.
This does actually come up quite often. Can me and my spouse combine our 401k plans together in a joint name or a joint account? And the answer to that is no. Your 401k is yours, an IRA is an individual retirement account, and that tracks along with your social security number. So those have to stay separate.
Yeah, and folks, what I like to say, Wes, I know you get a kick out of this when I mention this, actually you do have a spouse attached to the 401k, and it's not your spouse by name, it's the IRS. But yeah, so what happens is, what you got to remember, folks, the IRS is not going to let you tie this in with anybody because they want to track that IRA because of future taxes, the RMD, minimum distributions. So yeah, you got a partner. It's not your spouse or your partner, it's the IRS. And of course, we can really help make sure and clarify that. Let's go to our next question leading to this. Again, these are just things that we run into once the onboarding process starts. And this is, I kind of wish we had Leanne, but we can still address this. Go ahead and talk about this question because this comes up a lot.
Yeah, so what types of taxes will I owe if I move my 401k over to you guys? And in this example, we'll stick with that direct rollover. At that rollover, there are no taxable events. When you pay taxes on your 401k money, which is tax deferred money, is when you start taking distributions. We handle those distributions. Actually, Wes handles those distributions quite often for our clients. When you take a distribution, and you can speak to this, Wes, that's when Uncle Sam is ready for his. So when they call us and say, hey, Wes, I need some money out of my IRA, can you speak to how we can get that to them?
Right. Well, what we'll do is we'll try to calculate what their tax withholding should be, both federal and state. And then according to their needs, whatever the distribution amount is, we'll either make trades, or if we have the cash available, we'll send it out to them. And we can do it, as Tony says, lickety split, usually in 3 to 5 business days, so pretty quickly.
Yeah, so rolling that 401k over, no taxes, not a taxable event. You may get a 1099 letting the IRS know it's now in an IRA.
Letting your partner know that it's been rolled over.
But when you take money out, that's when Uncle Sam comes knocking.
And that's the other thing, folks. A lot of people get intimidated by this process. We have Leanne Tinsley, who's certified in tax planning. Now we've just hired TJ. So at no additional charge, whenever you make distributions, like I said, if you all call it, here's an example. People call sometimes, they say, I need $30,000, I'm going to buy a car. Well, they forget it's taxable. So we'll go in and calculate the taxes. If they're still good with that, Wes, in many cases, will raise the cash in the Schwab account, and then we'll figure out the taxes. Those are held for them, and then they'll get a net check deposited right in their checking account in about 4 to 5 business days. It's a wonderful thing. I mean, people are shocked that you don't have to call Schwab, you don't have to call these companies. We'll handle everything. All right, next question. I tell you what, this is a good one for Wes, because Wes, folks, tends to be more in the investment department. We have an income planning department, we have an annuity department, we have a new business department, service department, Schwab department. So Wes tends to work more in the Charles Schwab department in-house. So Wes asked this question, and let's kind of try to answer that for them.
Yeah, so this is a common one we get. How much money should I have in the stock market in retirement? So a lot of it comes down to your individual risk tolerance. How comfortable are you having money in the stock market? And ultimately, how comfortable are you with losses if the stock market were to go down? There's a common rule. It used to be called the rule of 100. They've updated this to the rule of 120. It says that you should take that number, 100, in this case 120, now that they've updated the rule, minus your age, and that number at the end should equal how much you have in stocks. So for instance, a 60-year-old person, 120 minus 60, they should have 60% of their retirement portfolio in stocks per this rule. Talked earlier on the radio show about this. Let's just say it's $1 million account. They've got 60% in stocks, and we see another 08 where the market goes down 50%. Well, you just lost $300,000 before we even get to the issue of bonds going down.
And you know what I feel about these rules of thumb. They're crazy, especially dealing with savers. So folks, that's part of the problem. You're out here dealing with an investment world who doesn't understand the mind of a saver. And what I would say to that question is, yeah, we might have some money in the stock market, but here's the question I always pose to savers. If we can accomplish your goals and objectives without all this risk, why would we be taking risks? So you might be saying, amen to that, Tony. So how do you do that? Well, the way you find out right now, you need to go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that Let's Get Started button. We have a free service. It's called the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. We'll be happy to discuss your situation, your 401k, your IRA, whatever the case may be. We'll be happy to talk to you. And if it warrants, actually, I'll be personally meeting with you at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices to discuss how we can help you be more worry-free. All right, got to take a quick break. We got Aaron over there saying, chop, chop, Tony. You guys are going to have to stay around. We got more questions coming your way. And yep, there are no stupid questions when it comes to your money. I'm Tony Walker. We'll be right back.
Now remember, when you roll over your money to us from your 401k, you get a free 15% bonus.
Free money? That sounds too good to be true.
No, there's no catch.
So, what are your fees?
No. Not fee, free.
What do you think?
I think we need a second opinion.
Don't get stuck in the wrong annuity. Get a second opinion from TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Looking to roll over your 401k? Then log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and learn just how easy it is to roll over and safeguard your 401k. Do it today. Get that back from you, Wes. Thank you, sir. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement, and we're covering this topic of there's no stupid questions. But Trey, you brought up something as we were planning for this show. You used to be in the medical field in terms of marketing. There's three industries that we're going to talk about. Let's show that graphic there, Mary Beth, that the knowledge gap. This was something you read or something, but let's talk about that a little bit. What are the three industries that all consumers have to deal with, but there's this huge knowledge gap between us and them, and probably where a lot of these stupid questions might arrive from?
Right. So in a previous career, I worked in marketing for a medical group. And we quickly realized there's this huge consumer knowledge gap between physicians, the ones treating patients, and the patients. And there's also in the financial world and the automotive world. So it's three things everyone consumes. Most everyone drives a vehicle, and most everyone's making some money and needs some advice on it. So something that you often say is we're not in the financial business, we're in the communication business. So better communicating the services we can provide and the advice we need to give.
On a level they can understand. Right?
On a level that they can understand. And in that gap, I feel like is become this stupid question territory where so many people are afraid to ask questions because they don't want to be seen by the expert as someone that knows so much less than them.
And then Wes, you brought up a good point to this. Real quickly, you had some automotive issues recently. What did you kind of throw up your hands based on? Tell everybody real quick what happened there.
I'm not automotively adept at all. I had no idea what the problem was, brought the car in. And
kind of as a computer issue or something,
Yeah, a
wasn't
computer issue with the navigation or something. Threw it into the dealership, and I just paid whatever they told me the cost would be because, I mean, I have no chance of fixing this thing on my own. I think it's funny, you mentioned these three industries. If you get to something like consumer electronics, like at Apple, people walk in telling the Apple store rep what the phones do. They have a wide knowledge of the products, but with these three industries, I mean, there's a huge disconnect between the consumer and the person providing the service.
That's a really good point. And then you brought up something in the radio show I thought was really interesting. There is some similarities to those three industries because if you go out and get second or third opinions, share that little insight that you had there.
Yeah, so I mean, if you go to get your car worked on, you might, sample three different automotive technicians, get their opinion, and you might get three different answers. It's the same in the medical field. You might get three different prescriptions, and I think it's the same in our business too. You might get three different products that you're proposed to purchase. So I think there's a wide gap between not only the knowledge that the consumer has versus the person providing the advice, but there's also a gap between the providers of the advice.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think what I would say to people, especially now let's talk about the financial industry. And again, folks, there's a lot of great advisors out there. I'm not trying to just diss our whole industry, but I think the advisor I would want to work with, I'm putting myself in the mind of a saver, a consumer. I want to meet with an advisor, number one, who slows the process down, who takes a lot of time to explain things, is very patient with my questions, because you're going to have a lot of questions. And secondly, has taken the time to do research, to do publications, I was thinking about our blogs. We take all of these TV shows. How many shows are we up to now? Aaron's off camera there. What is this, Aaron? We record 414. So this is the 414th show we've recorded. And it takes a lot of time to write the script. We got to think of how do we put this in layman's terms, right, to bridge that gap. And then I think then we take all the information. We got Mary Beth sending out email blasts. We have blog posts. I mean, how many blog posts do you think we've done on these various topics that help savers?
There's hundreds. And the best part is it's easily consumable. We're trying to close that knowledge gap and let you realize that there are no stupid questions. That's the only way that you can bridge that gap between finding that provider that needs to give you that advice, unless you're wanting to take it all on your own.
And I think that's kind of a good way to kind of wrap up before we go to our next question. If the people truly care about you, they're going to encourage you to ask questions. Right. If you start asking somebody questions and they start putting you off or acting like they're stupid questions, that's when I'd get a second opinion, Wes. I don't know about you, but I don't want somebody making me feel stupid because this is your money, folks, your life savings, and you deserve better than that. All right, we got time for one more question because I've got to wrap up here in a minute. I got to get to the Bible segment. Coming up in the Bible segment in just a second, folks, is the greatest question ever asked in the world. This is a good segment coming up. Let's go to our next question real quick. Again, we're basically the onboarding process, somebody's moving money over, and this comes up.
Yep.
Explain this, Trey.
So is my spouse automatically my primary beneficiary? And the answer to that is no. They may have been on your 401k plan or any account that you've rolled over, but in setting up a brand new account or multiple accounts, depending on the game plan we put together, you get to name primary and contingent beneficiaries. If you don't name your spouse and you name your estate, that gets probate involved, and we don't want to do that because with IRAs, annuities, you can name a designated beneficiary, which transfer by contract, it avoids probate entirely.
And we do that for folks. So folks, if you're sitting there right now going, gosh, I didn't realize there were so many details involved. I didn't realize you all at Tony Walker Financial play such an important part. This is what we specialize in. Folks, we're not money managers. We're not annuity peddlers. We're retirement planning specialists. Our job is to make sure that you get everything out of that account, that 401k, IRA, that you can get that money, use and enjoy it, of course, before it's too late. So let me invite you to do this. Why don't you go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that Let's Get Started. We'd be happy to talk to you about your situation. Or, of course, you can call the toll-free number on your screen. Okay, now I'm going to have you guys back in because we've got more questions. So next week, we'll have part 2 of the show. But when I return, I'm going to share with you the most important question ever in the Bible. Some good stuff coming your way. I'm going to run these two fellows out of here. And yes, get me another cup of coffee. Thanks again. We'll see you in just a minute. Wondering how much money you'll need to retire? Probably a lot less than you think. I'm retirement specialist Tony Walker, and for the past 36 years, I've helped thousands of savers determine when to retire and how much money they'll need in retirement, and I can help you too. To meet in person at no cost or obligation, let me invite you to log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call the toll-free number on your screen. We look forward to talking with you soon.
What happens to our plan if the stock market crashes?
Oh, don't worry if the stock market goes down. It always comes back up.
Okay, so what if we want to get our money out of this investment? Is there a cost, a fee?
Oh, the fees? No, they're very competitive. Don't worry about the fees.
So if I have to take money out of my 401k, are you going to help me with the taxes?
What do I look like? An accountant?
Don't get stuck in the wrong annuity. Get a second opinion from TonyWalkerFinancial.com. In more than 400 episodes of the WorryFree Retirement TV show, I've never started off the Bible segment with a Tony in the Trenches until now. When the other day, a friend of mine asked me this question. Tony, I know you are a big believer in the Bible, but which parts of the Bible do you believe to be true, and which parts of the Bible do you believe not to be true? Caught off guard by his question, I had assumed that my good friend believed, as I did, that all that is written in the Bible is true. Yet, not wanting to get into a huge discussion leading to more and more questions, looking back over his question, I should have asked my friend the most important question of all truth seekers, and that is the one found in Luke 9:18, where after Jesus feeds thousands of people on just a few pieces of fish and a loaf of bread, he asks his disciples this question: who do the people, that's the crowds looking for the next miracle and more free food, say that I am? After the disciples reply with a whole host of answers as to who the clueless multitude say that Jesus is, all of which are the wrong answers, in verse 20, Jesus asks his disciples the very same question and the one I should have asked my truth-seeking friend. Who do you say that I am? Of this provocative and most important of all questions regarding the prospects of our eternal life, the late great Christian writer C.S. Lewis states, there are only three possible answers to the who Jesus is. A, he's either a liar, B, he's a lunatic, or C, he is your Lord. So how does Peter respond in verse 20 by saying this? Jesus is the Christ of God. To which you might ask, well, what the heck does that mean? Well, let's take another shot at this where Peter answers this question a different way in John 6:68 by saying, Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. Now we're getting somewhere. I guess Peter discovered what I discovered in 1991 when, after failing miserably at chasing after the world's truth, I fell flat on my face and decided the best option moving forward was choosing C. The result? Since making Jesus the Lord of my life, all I can tell you is things have never been quite the same, and believing as Peter believed that only He has the words of eternal life. And I'm confident I've chosen the correct answer. How about you? Well, speaking of making the right choice, who in the world are you going to choose to handle your money and be there for you, not just at the sale, but all the way through retirement? Well, there's only three options to deal with that tax-infested 401k in your life savings, the savings you've been putting all this money to all along, and here they are. A, you can do nothing and just leave that money with your 401k plan and hope the person on the other end of that 1-800 number has the expertise to answer all of your retirement planning questions. Secondly, you can roll the dice in hopes that the advisor offering to buy you a free steak dinner or the advisor you stumbled across while Googling around on the internet truly has your best interests at heart and will provide you a free written game plan to monitor your progress through retirement. And then finally, C, my personal favorite, you can turn to a name you can trust, someone who's been in this business for 38 years, met with over 15,000 savers, has a local staff of 15 full-time employees, including 3 of those being salaried fiduciaries, and the owner of a company who will meet with you in person at any time. And that's us at Tony Walker Financial. So, assuming C looks like a good choice, why not take the next logical step and take advantage of our free offer called the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call? And here's how it works. What you'll do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. And when there, you simply click on that Let's Get Started button. And what happens is that information is confidentially sent to our offices in Bowling Green, Kentucky, where our appointment setter will set up a time that's convenient for you to talk to either myself or one of our highly trained fiduciaries. If the internet's not your thing, by the way, just call the toll-free number on your screen and tell them you want to set up a free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. Then after we talk, if it looks like we can help you, what we'll do is we'll set up a one-on-one personal appointment. That's right, in-person appointment at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. So take advantage of this free offer. Don't worry about asking stupid questions because at Tony Walker Financial, there's never a stupid question. We are here to help you with your money and we care about what you do with it. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call the toll-free number on your screen. Well, next week, guess what? We're going to have back in the studio my favorite son-in-law, Trey Juergens, and yes, my favorite nephew, Wes Walker, as we continue on with our series, There's No Stupid Questions. But in the meantime, you remember, between now and then, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.